If you think modern mass surveillance is a symptom of our smartphone addiction, social media habits, or even the chaos unleashed after 9/11, buckle up because the real story is way older. It didn't start with TikTok or Alexa whispering in your kitchen. It started with telegrams all the way back in 1945. Picture this: the world is reeling after World War II. Atomic bombs have just changed human history. In this tension-charged aftermath, while most people are trying to rebuild their lives, a few men in windowless rooms are quietly hatching a plan.
What if we could capture every international message just in case?
It didn't begin with a law, or a war, or a public outcry. It began with a quiet assumption that safety was more important than sovereignty. Today, we're swimming in a digital ocean that was poisoned before it even formed. We're going to map out how surveillance didn't just happen to us. It was built deliberately, quietly, layer by layer into the bones of the entire world we now depend on. Not to make you afraid, but to make you dangerously informed. Because understanding the real story is the first step towards reclaiming our future. The Cold War didn't just launch nuclear arms races, it birthed a race to listen to everything. It started with Project Shamrock, a name that sounds almost playful until you realize what it actually meant. Beginning in 1945, three major telegraph companies, Western Union, RCA Global, and ITT World Communications, began handing the US government copies of every telegram entering or leaving the United States, without warrants nor oversight. Just a nightly package of America's private conversations quietly dropped on intelligence agencies' desks. By the early 1970s, Shamrock was vacuuming up 150,000 messages per month. The Church Committee later called it the largest governmental interception program affecting Americans ever undertaken. Let that sink in. Before the internet even existed, the surveillance state already knew how to drink from a fire hose of human communication. And it didn't stop there. Around the same time, the US formed a secret alliance with 4 other English-speaking nations, the UK, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand, forming what we now know as Five Eyes. Together, they created Echelon, a global signals intelligence network designed to intercept communications bouncing off satellite and microwave towers. At first, it targeted Soviet and military traffic. Then quietly, it widened to civilian phone calls, to faxes, to emails, to friendly countries, to humanitarian groups, to businesses. In 2000, the European Parliament warned that Echelon had become a big brother without a cause. And why does this matter? Well, because it means that the technical feasibility of mass surveillance, capturing everything first and sorting out later, was already proven decades before 9/11, smartphones or big tech. The infrastructure was already humming, waiting for a spark. That spark came on a blue-skied morning in September 2001. 9/11 didn't create the surveillance state, it unleashed it. In the wreckage of the Twin Towers, amid grief and terror, government agencies pushed for, and got, powers they had long coveted. Enter the USA Patriot Act. With a few hundred pages signed in haste, Section 215 allowed the government to collect any tangible things it deemed relevant. Sound vague? It was meant to be. That phrase covered the bulk collection of phone metadata, who you called, when, and for how long, at a massive scale. This wasn't about terrorists overseas. It was a dragnet across everyday Americans, and darker projects bloomed in the background. Programs like StellarWind collected emails, browsing history, and financial records, all without warrants. The logic was simple: collect everything, sort it out later. Never mind that later reviews showed these massive dragnets had no measurable impact on stopping attacks. Never mind that 99% of the data was useless. In the post-9/11 fog of fear, surveillance wasn't questioned. It was actually celebrated. The FISA Amendments Act of 2008, or Section 702, gave legal cover to spy on foreign-facing communications without warrants. Executive Order 12333 opened the floodgates for global surveillance with zero US protections. What was the result? A machine capable of watching anyone, anywhere, anytime, legally. But the government didn't build it all alone. They had help from Silicon Valley. For a long time, people thought surveillance lived in the shadows, like inside NSA bunkers and CIA offices. But that illusion died the moment Silicon Valley opened its servers. In 2007, we learned about Prism, a secret program where the NSA tapped directly into tech giants like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Apple, Yahoo, your inbox, your private calls, your cloud storage, all of it accessible through backdoors and sealed legal deals. These companies said, "We don't technically give direct access, but technicalities don't matter when the end result is the data flows straight into government databases. Meanwhile, AT&T built physical taps at the backbone of the internet. Room 641A, a windowless room in San Francisco where entire streams of online traffic were duplicated and copied for analysis. By 2011, the NSA was processing over 20 billion communications per day, with telecoms acting as the infrastructure. And it got deeper. By 2010, 1/3 of people with top secret clearance weren't even government employees. They were private contractors, like Booz Allen Hamilton. That's where Edward Snowden worked. And Booz Allen wasn't alone. Over 500,000 contractors held top secret clearance by 2013. These corporations didn't just enable mass surveillance, they profited from it. They lobbied for it. They made it faster, cheaper, and harder to escape. Startups like Palantir Technologies, funded by the CIA's venture capital arm, didn't just build software, they built predictive policing machines. Palantir gave law enforcement tools to fuse disconnected data sets, license plates, utility bills, DMV records, social graphs, and turn them into searchable visual maps of human lives. ICE used Palantir to go after immigrants, not just to track individuals, but to identify and arrest the relatives of unaccompanied minors. With one click, someone's network, their friends, family, coworkers, became a list of targets. Palantir became the bridge between spy agencies and Silicon Valley, proof that the surveillance industrial complex isn't just real, it's thriving. Then came Clearview AI, a company that scraped billions of photos from Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, all without your consent. They built a tool that lets law enforcement upload a blurry CCTV frame and get your full identity in seconds. Your selfies, your tagged photos, your face in someone else's post, all of it becomes a searchable police lineup for a company you've never heard of, using data you never meant to share. You didn't sign up for this, but you're in it anyway. Even our smart devices joined the surveillance economy. Police partnered with Ring doorbells. Google sold geofence data to law enforcement. We weren't just being watched, we were funding it. We were wearing it. We were grateful for it. Because convenience always beats caution until it's too late. You don't need a prism backdoor or a secret legal order anymore. The government can just buy your life. Data brokers collect and sell thousands of data points on each of us. Where we drive, what we buy, who we date, even our medication history. Agencies like DHS use this data to track immigrants, monitor protests, and build invisible watch lists, all without a warrant. Surveillance today doesn't just come from spy agencies, it comes from coupon cards, weather apps, fitness trackers. We traded our privacy for convenience, and that trade wasn't a fair one. But the biggest tech players weren't just enabling surveillance, they were building the backbone for it. When the Pentagon launched its $10 billion Jedi cloud contract, it wasn't asking for storage. It was asking for real-time battlefield intelligence, drone video processing, and AI-powered surveillance targeting. Amazon, Microsoft, and Google all fought for the deal. Because owning the cloud means owning the infrastructure of control. The same systems that run your photo backups and calendar reminders are also powering predictive policing, facial recognition, and military surveillance. The cloud isn't neutral, it's weaponized, and big tech isn't standing at the edge of the surveillance state, it's sitting in the command center. Before, spy agencies were limited by human effort. You could tail a suspect, but not a million. Then came cloud storage, machine learning, AI. The NSA's Bluffdale facility in Utah holds exabytes of data, enough to store years of global digital history. Instead of finding needles in a haystack, they stored every haystack. Systems like XKeyscore made it searchable. Every search term, every email, every login. Want to find everyone who searched protest? Done in seconds. Facial recognition matured. Smartphones became pocket spies. Even encryption came under siege. The NSA's Bull Run project spent millions undermining encryption. Not by cracking the math, but by weakening the software and pressuring companies into backdoors. And if encryption could be bypassed, they just hacked the endpoint. The barriers collapsed. The system was live, and no one needed a warrant. Now, you might not see the cameras. You might not feel the data leaking, but surveillance is already reshaping how we live. After Snowden's revelations, Wikipedia searches for controversial topics plummeted. Not because people stopped caring, but because they were afraid of being watched. That's the chilling effect. It doesn't arrest you. It makes you shrink yourself. Surveillance shifts power. It empowers those who control the data over those who are merely subjects of it. Let me show you how real that imbalance is. Ahmed Mufaq Zidan was a respected journalist working for Al Jazeera. He interviewed militant leaders in war zones, not because he supported them, but because it was his job to understand and report the truth. But the NSA's Skynet program, a machine learning system trained on metadata, flagged him as a potential terrorist courier. Why? Because he travels frequently. Because his sources are dangerous people, and that's all it took. An algorithm marked a journalist for suspicion. One wrong classification and a reporter becomes a suspect, or worse, a target. This isn't just a bug in the system, this is the system. It silences marginalized voices first, then chills the rest by example. Innovation suffers, dissent becomes risky, and even democracy begins to wither under ambient paranoia. And the worst part is that you don't even know what's happening until it's too late. Understanding surveillance is the first step towards breaking its spell. This isn't just a technical problem, it's a psychological one, a philosophical one. It thrives when governments overreach, but also when citizens underestimate themselves. Understanding how surveillance grew, how it profits, and how it reshapes culture isn't about fear, it's about freedom. So ask yourself, what kind of world do we want to live in? Who gets to control our information? What are we willing to trade for comfort? And what are we losing forever? Because privacy isn't about hiding, it's about being fully human, with room to grow, think, dream, and even dissent. When you lose privacy, you lose the space to evolve. Surveillance doesn't turn democracies into dictatorships overnight. It dims the light quietly until one day you're squinting to see. But if surveillance is engineered, so is resistance. Better laws, stronger encryption, decentralized networks, local activism, education. Every right of awareness you carry is a piece of armor. The future is not written yet, and the clearer you see this system, the harder you are to control. Look, it's one thing to understand the system. It's another thing to protect yourself from it. That's why I created something I wish I could hardwire into everyone that I know, the Privacy Survival Bundle. The most important, actionable steps to defend your privacy in the world that's been quietly weaponized against you. Normally, this is a part of my Neurospicy Cyber Club, where I publish deep research every week. But this moment is too critical to hide it behind a paywall. So for now, it's completely free. No catch, just click the link in the description and start reclaiming the version of you that they were never supposed to see.